voice of Ezra, Taylor Gray. The voice of Sabine, Tia Sirkar. And finally, the voice of Zeb, Steve Bloom. And so you guys, like I said, we're going to do this just old school honor system style. You raise your hands, I'll pick you, and hopefully we'll get to everybody, okay? I know.
Thank you all for coming. I can definitely tell the voices with all of you. Awesome. So who's going to be voicing Darth Vader this season?
Me.
Me.
Simon, you go. Take that. Yeah, absolutely. The same person that voiced Darth Vader in the original movies. James Earl Jones. One of the most, I would say, one of many surreal things in making this show, maybe the actually most surreal thing, is Dave sent me when he first worked with James on the dialogue, recorded it. He sent me like voice recordings, clips essentially, of the dailies, of hearing all of the different takes, and hearing James Earl Jones, untreated, obviously, playing the part of lines that Dave and I essentially had written together, was pretty insane. You grew up, you think like, I'm going to write lines for Darth Vader, but I'm not actually going to get Darth Vader to say them out loud. And that was listening to Darth Vader say them out loud, so that's who's going to play Darth.
That's such an awesome answer.
Every appearance this season of Vader?
Yeah, so far. And you know, James is great. You don't really direct him as much. He'd sit and say, "No, David, I haven't done this in 10 years. Could you remind me?" I'm like, "No, you're doing it." Now, wouldn't I just look at each other and kind of high five when he's not looking? And it's an awesome moment.
There were a couple moments in the takes though where he coughed or he corrected himself and started over.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you realize there is a man playing Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Playing Darth Vader. It's sort of like being a child and having the helmet come off.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys let us in on those sessions?
Yeah, no, Mandalorians.
I mean, just to watch. Just
Too dangerous.
They don't trust us.
I know.
Hi.
Me? Okay. Yeah, first of all, congratulations on the success of season 1. We're really excited about season 2. Going into season 2, are you feeling any added pressure to deliver to the fans, especially now that you're ramping it up, adding more characters from Clone Wars?
I don't. No, I mean, I think maybe they do. The actors could speak to it. I mean, for me, this is like, this month is my 10th year at Lucasfilm, creating Star Wars content. April 26th was the day I officially started working on Star Wars all those years ago. So it's just, for me, it's just fun. You know, the story gets bigger, the stakes get higher, it's as it should be. I feel a little bit we're moving into our kind of Empire Strikes Back era for our characters, where they're really challenged. As the first year is kind of a new hope, and I mean, all their characters are going through trials of different kinds.
I think also there's an automatic pressure when you do anything that has the word Star Wars in the title. So I don't know that there's sort of increased or decreased amounts of pressure. I think you always feel a responsibility. It's like writing books of the Bible. You know, you're adding books to the Newer Old Testament. So you know, once you start, you know the pressure is going to be that throughout.
He stole my answer.
Hi. Here. I'm Fernando from Chile, and I would like to ask Dave and Simon. Many kids, are introduced to the Star Wars through Rebels now. So I would like for you to talk about that process and how's that, important for you. And I also would like to know what are your thoughts about the future of the Star Wars world? That now that George Lucas retired and let new people in charge.
Sure. Well, we should both. Well, the first question, I introducing kids to a new Star Wars or to Star Wars for the first time. I have 2 boys myself who are actually here, who are 5 and 9 years old, and grew up on Clone Wars as much as they grew up on the movies, actually. And I see their friends are experiencing Star Wars for the first time through Rebels. And for us, knowing the responsibility of that, one of the things that was really important from the beginning was to give them the experience that we had as kids, which was the really first point of entry being the original films. And So we wanted the tone, the feel, the texture of those movies to be really present in the show. And I think, one of the things that's been really gratifying about the response to the show is that, hardcore fans and even more casual fans, but who appreciate the original movies, see the connection tonally, emotionally, thematically between what we're doing and what George did from the beginning. And I think the future of the Star Wars movies, I'm involved in some of the films in different capacities, and I think that same approach of wanting to have the ethos of the original films is what they're doing in all the different aspects, whether it's the video games or the movies, the standalone movies, what we're doing. And I think because of that, they feel all of a piece and all of a sort of a singular voice and vision, even though there's different filmmakers involved with each. And I think the fans will feel similarly about the films and the other media the way they feel so far about Rebels.
Yeah, and I think the future, like you said, is great. And if there's any pressure, I do feel it's that now that there's so many incredible things in play, that we want everything to be of a very, very, very high quality. So I think typically, just say when you get to animation, a lot of times you do an animated version of things. People tend to think, oh, it's just for kids, or it'd be simpler, dumbed down, and we never had that attitude on Clone Wars, and we certainly have not had that attitude on Rebels. I think it started out in a way that's fun and exciting, people forgetting that A New Hope was originally by George designed for kids, but it was also designed so parents would watch it and be engaged. And, when I see the Force Awakens trailer and I get excited about that, I want to deliver the same type of excitement to the audience of Rebels. There isn't a way that I want to take it and have it feel any diminished. So we want every aspect of Star Wars that we're working on at Lucasfilm to be truly great and to reflect each other's great work. And I think that's kind of the pressure, but it's also, better in a way because now I work with more people like Simon and Kiri Hart, and Carrie Beck, and Ian Roberts, and a writing team. It helps that you have so many people that have this love of Star Wars in common to help lead the way.
It is really like a singular family, too. I mean, the people that Dave is talking about, they're the story group at Lucasfilm, and they're involved, and there is real communication between all the different stories. So we talk to the 7, 8, 9 filmmakers, they talk to the standalone films. We are all collaborating together to tell, a sort of huge story that each of us tells a chapter of.
Hey guys, I know you guys have your hands up, but we've got 2 mic winners on the side, so just go grab their attention and they'll bring you a mic.
Good afternoon, Dave Vermillion, DC United, Get Your Geek On. Thanks for taking the time out here. You can laugh, it's okay, I get that a lot. It's ours, we're rocking. Dave and Simon, Taylor Gray's character, Ezra Bridger, was called a street rat in season 1. The fans have taken calling him Space Aladdin. Even his name Ezra is the character from Disney lore. Are there any other Disney influences or Easter eggs that we should be looking for in season 1 or future seasons?
Not that I know. I mean, that was a flattering comparison, I have to say, as someone that grew up in animation, loving animation, a great film and a great character Disney had created. Ezra's design came about because I was sketching him on my kitchen table at home one day, which doesn't happen a lot, and my wife happened past the table, and I said, "What do you think of this?" And she was like, "What do you mean?" And she just kept walking, and she's like, "Well, that's okay, but it looks like everything else." And this was before I changed the design, and so it kind of made me look back at a lot of different characters, heroes, and character actors, and actually, oddly, Aladdin wasn't one of them. If anything, it was. I looked a little bit Ralph Macchio. It's perfect, I'll be honest with you, because it's like, what was great about this 80s actors, and
when am I going to learn how to punch?
Yeah, exactly. So but I don't think there's any. I don't do like hidden Mickeys or stuff like that. It's cool for the parks, but it wouldn't be. People find those all the time, so who knows? Maybe my designers put them in. I don't know.
Seb's a secret Disney princess. Hi there. Question for Dave and Simon. You've announced that Sarah Michelle Gellar is part of the cast, and Freddie, I guess. Can you tease anything about her character, or how soon we'll see her, and what's she like in the recording booth?
Ooh, my wife?
That'd be the one.
She played the Wookiee in season 1. Nobody believes me when I say it. She plays Chewbacca's lady in our show, season 2. And I talked about this on a podcast a while ago and broke down the entire season 2 with her and her Wookiee presence during the season. Outside of that, I can't tell you anything because it would spoil the surprise. But yeah, she's really hairy and has a great low growl. She's a powerful actress, and she can grunt with the best of them.
Hi, Will from Geeks with Wives. This question is for Freddie.
I'm one of those.
Freddie, your character obviously is kind of still shrouded in mystery. How much of the character's backstory did you get when you took on the role, and are we going to find out more about it in season 2?
Yeah, Dave gave everyone a really, really big breakdown on what made these characters tick, so that our season 1 performances would be reflective of the history that's gone on so far. So I knew about his master. I knew about Order 66. I knew about, I was going to say Protocol 66. It's Order 66. I have to stop myself. But I knew about all that and how it affected him and what he did during that time. That's thanks to Dave and Greg Weisman when we were just getting ready to do the pilot that they turned into 2 episodes and aired as a movie. So we kind of knew all that going in, and in season 2, as far as Kanan's character goes, you're gonna learn a lot about why he is who he is today, why he's the type of teacher he is, his qualities and his faults, and you'll find out a lot of that through a very special character who kind of helps motivate some of those feelings to come out. So you'll definitely learn pretty much all the questions you have. There'll still be a couple, they made you wait 3 movies before Vader got it at the end, so you gotta wait a little bit. But yeah, we give you a lot more in season 2.
It's a question for Dave. Now, earlier in the panel, you mentioned that if the story was right, there are certain characters you might consider bringing back. Are there any characters from the previous stories or even the defunct expanded universe now that you'd be interested in perhaps trying to chase that story, or do you just kind of let it come naturally?
I think you always have characters in mind that you'd like to see interface. We throw names around the room. I mean, everybody in the writer's room is a fan. So everybody has certain characters that they would love to see. And sometimes you're never sure like how serious people are or not, when they bring people up. And you have to be careful with that. Because if you're joking and say, how about we bring Porkins in? That'd be great. And then all of a sudden something happens and you're like, hey, Porkins would fit for that. And then the person's face is suddenly like serious. And they're like, no, I was joking. And I'll seize on that idea with my sense of humor and be like, oh no. Now he's in. But he's not. So, and sometimes you only get so far. But, you never know. I'm not sure what makes us decide a particular character's coming in or out. Sometimes, we'll get to talking when we're in the script phase, and we'll have, honestly, recently, a recent problem we have is there's so many cool things happening in the script. I was like, Simon, I only have 21 minutes and 30 seconds. This would be awesome as like a 90-minute movie, but I have 21 minutes. And he's like, yeah, I know, I've been writing it, it's hard to get in there. So sometimes we'll try to spread stuff out that we work on this up until the last minute possible. Nothing is ever set in stone. Everything is changeable. It's not like we just get the script, that's a blueprint, we follow it. We deconstruct it along the way, try to get it as right as we can. And luckily I work with guys like Simon, Greg, Henry Gilroy. Then they're really good at moving through that as I'm trying to direct it and get the best story we can, changing sometimes a lot, sometimes little.
We get a lot of time too, which I don't really, almost more than in features for me. We get a lot of brainstorming time. So we get a lot of blue sky meetings of what should this season be. And we really spend probably months on that. We're doing it while we're also writing episodes for the previous season, but there's a lot of time to dream and to play around.
Hi, Thomas from Star Wars in the Classroom. And hey, go Rose. She is. We provide resources for teaching Star Wars K-12, and Star Wars Rebels provides rich ground for doing so. So my question for you guys is, what do you think, this is anybody on the panel, what do you think are the big lessons that are being taught through these stories?
I mean, Star Wars shows you that the good guys don't always win, right? Star Wars teaches about patience. Star Wars teaches about discipline. Star Wars teaches about a lot of social issues that most sci-fi can't really touch on, outside of racism, right? That's one that's in every sci-fi one. But they deal with a lot of cultural things, a lot of government issues. And in our show alone, we deal with those things. And the movies can go in much more deeper in some instances. But I would say it teaches a lot more about real life than a lot of the stuff out there. You know what I mean? Most stuff you see, you know the good guy is, you know the bad guy is, and you know who's going to win and who's going to lose. And Star Wars doesn't give that to you. That's I think why it was always so powerful, and not only my mind but most people's, is because you genuinely relate to it. It's not just I wish I was Han Solo. You relate to Han Solo, right? You wish you were Superman if you're a kid, if you like DC, or you wished you were Spider-Man if you like Marvel. But you didn't really relate. Well, you can relate to Peter, I guess, but so that's not a good example. But you know what I'm trying to say. Everybody relates to Peter. He's a pretty kid with problems, right? So. You know, to me, Star Wars was always kind of, you know, this is the real world, and you can work as hard as you possibly can and do your best and still fail. And it's what does a Jedi do once they fail? And that's sort of what shapes us as a man, shapes us as a woman, as a human, whatever. As a Wookiee, whatever.
I'm moved by the hope that is present in the show. I think it's a great thing for kids to latch onto, especially these days. And I love the idea of the spark of a rebellion, that it takes an initial idea and then it's followed through with action. As Freddie said, you don't always succeed, but at least you can have hope. I love that we seem to be giving that message to the younger generation, and also encouraging them to follow through on their ideas, and that it's worth it to get a group together and not just talk about it, but actually take action and do it and walk the walk. So I think it's a great metaphor.
I love that it addresses the possibility of transformation also. No matter what's happened to you in your life, there's always possibility of changing and growing and developing into something better, and seeing a possible future no matter what the odds. And that's really encouraging to me. I'm a dad too, and so I love to instill that in my kids. No matter what's happening to you, you can always change that.
Hi, Jason from Bombad Radio, a podcast who's interviewed a lot of the Clone Wars guys and hopes one day to interview you guys as well. I thanked you yesterday, Dave, for a diverse cast in every show. It's amazing to see. I specify male and female, but also across the board, and the Rebels is no different. Another thing you do really well is keep spoilers from us. We don't have the show ruined. It's something I greatly appreciate.
Even when you guys boo him.
Yeah, without being sarcastic, you know, it's appreciated. That said, in the trailer that we've now got online and that people are looking at across the globe, there are obviously return characters already been talked about. There are some new characters as well. Did we see a female and male Inquisitor? Is there anything you can say about any of that? I don't know how much you're allowed to say, but that's my question.
Hang on 1 second.
He'll come over and whisper it in your ear.
Okay, so we deliberated, and the answer is I don't know. I mean, I do know, so that's a blatant lie. But I think the fun part about any trailer, right, is once you see it, there are the things that are designed to hit you immediately, like the Rex moment, having Hondo in there, the obvious things you see, and then, but as you watch a trailer over and over again, if they're designed well, they have layers. Then each time you watch it, you get a little more out of it, a little more out of it. So those are all the great things that become questions and debated. I just had a kid behind stage asking me, like, who are those other clones? Are those clones with Rex? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And, you know, but that's what I want you to be asking, because it keeps you engaged and it keeps you hoping and it gives you something to ask me at these conventions. So, you know, eventually when it gets answered, it's hopefully awesome and what you want. Or then no one ever asks me after it's out, right? That's the funny thing. It's always a forward thing. I always think we'll get to then they'll ask me all about details season 1. Nope, everybody's on to season 2, which is cool. I mean, because that means we've answered all your questions, I guess, about the previous season.
Good afternoon, Katie Cullen with AfterBuzz TV. To touch on the previous season, thank you for that segue, one of the big questions was what happened to Ezra's parents? We haven't seen them. Will we be covering that in any capacity in the upcoming season? And, given what happened at the panel, will we hear anything about Sabine's family?
What's wrong, Sabine?
I didn't really mean to. I think I misspoke because I didn't mean anyone anywhere. Sorry.
What do you think, Tia? That is fun.
I'm about the worst person to ask about what's happening with Sabine's story. I don't know anything. I find out when we get the script before, like a couple of days before the episode records.
We will be addressing, definitely Ezra's parents to some degree. We think it's important. It's because it came up. We all noticed that kids focus in on that, and it's something to be responsible with answering that question. And now that he has this other family, what happened to his mom and dad? And we've had them, visually in the show. What they look like. So that will be a part of the story. And I think the nice thing about season 2 is you get a broader look at all the characters. Now that you know who they are to some level, it's not just Sabine maybe and what her background is, but also Hera and Zeb, Ezra, Kanan. It's a lot of people wanted that. You even eventually get more of a depth backstory on Chopper and where Chopper is from. So you kind of get it all this year. It's it's fun.
Do we have to?
Of course.
That's great.
My name is Josh from KVVB TV and Puddle Pirate Productions, and my question actually is for Steve, because my best friend for 20 years, his name's Zeb. I love the name. Yeah, he is. So my question is we saw a little bit in season 1 of Zeb kind of had a backstory. Are we going to go more into it about his species and what his story is and why he hates the Empire as much as he does?
It could absolutely happen.
That's an answer like Dave.
Yeah,
that was very good.
She's my mentor. Well, I'm his Padawan.
You don't want to get fired.
Is there more of a backstory for Zeb? I'll ask Dave this.
Simon, what do you think?
It'd be fascinating to explore.
Oh my god.
We're all trained by Dave. He can find us.
No, I can't.
Me too.
I'm so evil.
Good Lord.
We go deeper into all the characters' backstory in the second season. Like Dave said, the first season's about introducing them in many ways, and also about integrating a new member into the family with Ezra. And the second season, we can go a little deeper into their backstories and into their interpersonal relationships too.
We got a lot more time season 2 also. We don't have to, we had a shorter season 1, so we get more time to explore everybody in season 2 as well.
I feel like in season 1 there was a lot more about like the familial dynamics and how like establishing who is what within this little ragtag, crew. And I feel like in season 2 so far we've really gotten to explore like certain pairings that you haven't seen yet will within the crew happen and go on like really interesting adventures. I can say that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's all fine. That's all
and
great.
It's really fun because you're starting to see sort of each person's personalities as an individual kind of coming to light, and then you do get to find out more stuff about some of us. All of us? Some of us.
All of us.
Hello, everyone. Kevin Cleveland from thegeektable.com. First, just want to say thank you for having this panel on my birthday. It's a great birthday present. This question is actually for Freddie. Coming from being an actor in front of the camera to doing a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff like with the WWE, and now still being a bit behind the camera, but also in front of the camera with at least the voice role. How does that feel to get kind of back to what you were doing before a little bit more?
That's a long answer, and the short one might sound kind of generic, but I honestly have more fun doing this than any acting job on camera that I ever did. We get to basically do a radio show every week, and we're all in the room together. There's no hair and makeup. There's no wardrobe people fixing my collar because it moved a quarter of an inch, and it's a lot easier if you're a father of two to work once a week in the valley for 6 hours than to go to Australia for 6 months and not see your family. So it's not a transition for me at all. I wanted to be a father more than an actor. So once my daughter was born, I already kind of had one foot out the door already. Vanessa, are you crying behind my back? I thought Vanessa was shedding tears. Tia's shedding tears now?
I can vouch. He's the best dad in the world. This guy is literally dad number one. He is, indeed.
Top 10. But yeah, man, so it wasn't a transition. This is what I did when I was 8 years old, and now I get to do it, and it looks way cooler because they animated it. So yeah, it wasn't a transition. I really love it.
It helps that you're really good at it too.
Oh, well, thank you.
There's that.
Thanks.
Hi guys, I'm Sean, part of the I'm right here in the back.
Okay.
Hey. First off, Andre Blackman called me, says hi to Vanessa and Tia, so I want to tell him. But I'm a big fan of the show, and I've asked, I met Steve a bunch of times. Hey Steve, good to see you. I always ask this to at cons. For you guys, with Star Wars having a lot of new toys, do you guys own any toys of your characters, or what would you see from the show become a toy?
I mean, I got 2 kids, so there's a lot of Kanans and Zebs in my house. I've got a couple of Jason Isaac Inquisitors in there. Yeah, we got a lot. We got a lot. They're more for my kids than for me. I'm not, Rick Moranis in a room by myself. But I'll play with the kids and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I spent a whole night putting together every Lego set that they sent me. So I have the Ghost. I have each one of our characters. I think.
Don't you have the Nerf lightsaber too?
I have the lightsaber. I have every
your lightsaber with
I have that lightsaber. I have Vader's lightsaber, I believe. Red.
Red? Just throw it out there.
We all got really awesome Stormtrooper helmets with Sabine's graffiti on it, which is awesome. And Vanessa and I got presented with Sabine helmets made by the Mandalorian mercs. And it was they're
And
so
the airbrush
legit.
gun, too.
Oh, and the gun, and a plaque. It was lovely.
It was really
So
cool.
I just need the outfit now.
I don't have nearly
We
enough.
can make that happen.
I don't have nearly enough toys yet. I'm going shopping right after this.
I have all of them.
I think so.
Hey guys, Christian Harloff from AMC Jedi Council in Schmozno. So the question I have for you guys, Dave and Simon, is because we know the time period that this takes place in between 4 or 5 years before New Hope. How many seasons do you guys think it's going to take you to tell the story up to where we need to go and where we all know it goes? And the second part for that question is, let's say a particular movie, spin-off movie, takes place in that timeline. Say Rogue One, maybe not. In that timeline, how much information would you guys be able to get to give the actors some backstory that they might need leading up to that period?
Well, I mean, as we were saying, all of the creatives kind of collaborate. We know what each other are doing. So the purpose of that is so that we're always aware of the continuity and the different stories. So if there was a situation where that was happening, then we would absolutely know in detail what was going on, and then I could inform my actors as necessary, or our writers, But that's kind of the beauty of the new story group scenario, is it all interconnected. And that's the purpose for it, to keep the stories all on track, depending where people are. And the story group is the one that comes in and says, I like that idea, but that's going to be happening somewhere over here. So we're going to have that idea over here and this over here. As far as how many seasons we could go, I'm not exactly sure. I never know. I got asked that question every year on Clone Wars. And I thought it was a 2-year job, in all honesty, when I started it. That was the most animated series that I'd worked on, maybe about 2 years. So I thought I'd move to Bay Area for 2 years and move back to LA. I've been there 10 years. So I never know. I mean, I think it's kind of as long as there's a demand for it. I think I do have a little more of an arc in mind for Rebels as do you. We talk about kind of that bigger picture because we are running up to A New Hope. That is a flagpole that we know. So that's kind of a question on how would we deal with that incident in the galaxy should our timeline reach that.
Hey, James Burns from Jedi News, also writer for StarWars.com and The Insider. Couple of two-part question. First one, was it incidental that all of the character names are all biblical? Because that's something that we've noticed, and I don't think you've ever been asked that before. But if you look at all of the names, they're all directly from the Bible. So that's the first part. The second part of the question is, we've already seen there's a new look for Tia coming in season 2, and some of the other cast. So how far along is season 2? Is there a big jump from where we left off at the end of season 1, or is it just carrying on in the timeline and Tia's decided to have her hair done?
Good question.
The name question is interesting because it was. I should find the documents we have of all of our names that we tossed back and forth. Greg and Dave and Kiri and all of us. I mean, no, those were the names. Should be named Dave.
Yes.
But one of the things we did say consciously was that there was a biblical sense to the naming and to this sort of seriousness of purpose of the original movies. And there's the cloaks themselves have a religious feel to them. So that was, I don't know that, at least for me, it was conscious that each one was, and frankly is news to me that each one is from the Bible. But we were aware that there were elements of that in the original films that we were trying to connect to.
Is Chopper Old Testament or New He's the only. He's the exception.
I definitely keyed on the idea of Luke's name, Luke Skywalker, and I like to point out when I get in the room with the writers that the names in Star Wars are very purposeful, but when you get into the expanding universe, they become often very odd and contain a lot of X, Y's, and Z's, and hyphens, and that's all fine. But when you're in a medium like we are, Han Solo, guy's pretty much by himself, right? And that's kind of the genius of George, is that he would disguise this stuff. I didn't think about that when I was a kid. You don't know the derivations of these names, but names have a purpose. If you know someone's full name in folklore, then you have power over them, right? Because if you do know someone's name, it gives you an understanding of who they are. I joke, I've got a guy in the crew named Spotswood, and your family, at some point, probably had a particular task that involved, finding the firewood or searching, hunting for something, because that's where names come from. They don't just, to make up a name that is odd, just for the sake of it sounding like a space world name isn't really what Star Wars does. So I think that having these names, Hera, a very purposeful name for the type of character that she is. Chopper, he's a disruptive little character that causes problems. He chops things up. It's blatant, but when the characters work, when you like the characters, it doesn't matter. You just accept them. And so I think that's what we do. We try to create a lot of these names. And like with Ezra was definitely a connection to the fact that I liked the name Luke, and it was a real kid's name. And we both actually know a kid named Ezra in our lives. And I'm like, that sounds like Star Wars to me. And Simon's like, yeah, I agree. And that was basically it.
We actually wrote an article with Soul.com about the name, because we actually went to the media.
Oh, wow.
And the powers that be said, no, we can't run that because we don't know whether it's true. So,
oh, interesting.
So I'll get it to you.
There was something interesting.
That's cool, man.
And some of it is a strange thing. I can't remember I think there was a slight intention around Bridger. The Bridger, he's the character, he's the bridge between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. So there is a bridging of topics. So you get as a bridge. The wave along. See, and whether we intended that or not, now because of your reaction, we actually thought of that. Very well, thorough. Good job, Simon.
Hey guys, Lucas Siegel over here from comicbook.com and StarWars.com as well. You talked about Tia mentioned the theme of family for season 1, and Vanessa and I had a conversation about the theme of turning points for season 1, where each character had a really specific turning point. What would you say is a general theme for season 2, and is there also a character theme for season 2 like that?
You're always good with that. You're my theme guy. You're so good with that.
It's interesting. I think the way we approached season 2 was sort of new challenges to the family. From the outside rather than from the inside. I think in many ways the first season, the challenge was integrating a new member of a family into an existing family. And that's a difficult thing to do, whether it's a stepchild or an adopted child or whatever it is, new parent. There's a lot of things in real life that are real life corollaries for what the first season was exploring. And I think the second season was, now that they are essentially, with their normal familial issues, a unit, a family. It's sort of, how do they continue to grow individually, and how do they stay together as each of them is growing, as each of them is facing new challenges, and in some ways grow up. I think a lot of the second season is about Ezra facing some sort of darker issues and being forced to grow up through them.
Yeah, definitely.
Hi, I'm Scott Murray with the Assembly of Geeks podcast. I'd like to ask all the voice actors, maybe you guys as well. Obviously, one of the things that we really like about Star Wars is the characters and how we can all latch on to certain characters and become big fans of them. And you guys provide that to all of us, and that's for sure. As we head into season 2, what are some of the things that you might want to share or can share with fans of your characters that they can look forward to as your characters continue to develop into season 2, as far as what we can see and what you can share that we're going to see?
Do you want to start at that end, or do you want to start there?
Well, I feel like lasers are trained on my forehead. We'll see what a beautiful dancer Zeb is. We'll witness his cooking skills, and maybe a little bit of piloting skills, perhaps. Just with his rubber duckies in the bathtub. No spoilers here. That's pretty much all I can give you. Sorry.
Tell me to stop if I should. I think Sabine, like in season 1, you sort of don't know why that goes for a lot of these characters, but she seems very angry, not towards the Empire, obviously, and she's got these skills that you're like, how does a young girl have these skills? And so I think as season 2 progresses, you might find out a little more about what is her backstory and what happened in her past that led her to this point. And I think I've been very excited about season 2 because I'm sort of like dying to know what's happened in all of these characters' pasts, and it's fun to get to start exploring that.
Yeah, we see Ezra grow up, so we see what happens as he grows more powerful, more knowledgeable. He is learning new things every day and seeing new things every day. And we saw his first time up in space, pretty much, right? And that like each episode he's coming upon new things. But one thing I saw, which I see on this little thing too, he has a scar now, which is cool. No, I just saw it for the first time out here watching the new trailer. So that's an exciting little thing too.
I think Hera in season 1 managed to fulfill her vision, which was to bring a group of people together and unite them with Fulcrum and get the cell together. And I think she succeeded in doing that. And I think in season 2 she can sort of let them do their thing. Now everything is coalesced. We are a bigger group. We have other people joining us. And she can sort of let them fan out and keep doing what they do so well. So I think she'll sort of oversee that and applaud them along the way.
Specific growth is difficult to talk about for season 2 because we don't want to spoil things, but based off what you saw in the trailer, I can tell you a little bit. Outside of just growth, right? Like he's still on his path. You'll see him and Ezra go through some growing pains, as you would see a teenager fight with their father. If their father was teaching them how to play a sport or whatever the family business was going to be, you'll see some rejection there. You'll see him look towards others for advice, which is going to irk Kanan quite a bit. You'll see Kanan have to deal with, now we all know the secret, with Rex, and that's going to be a tricky situation based on the nature in which he lost his master from Order 66. So you see a lot of conflict. Dave addressed the fact that we're all going to be challenged this year. Season 1 is to establish us as a legitimate threat. Season 2 is to then see where they're at, sort of like a boxer on the way up. You give them a better fighter every single fight. You give them a couple of tomato cans to make them feel confident, and then eventually they're ready for the champ, which is Vader. Unfortunately, Vader is Mike Tyson in his prime, so I am Buster Douglas. You know what I'm saying?
I think, what's great about that, listening to you guys and Simon's answer earlier, and we work so quickly on all this, you don't often have time to sit back and look at the bigger picture, but you are so right when you say that each of the characters is really going to have to struggle with who they were and where they came from, and they'll be confronted with those pasts, and they're going to have to make a choice if they're going to deal with those past conflicts and let them go, or if they're going to let them drag them back down into who they were. And that's very true, I think, of all of us in life. And Ezra especially will be confronted with the idea that just because he's been given a great power and a great ability and wonderful skills, matching that, unfortunately, also comes greater evil, greater darkness, malevolence, and he starts to become aware of this presence in the galaxy, which is a frightening thing. But if you truly are worthy of, being a Jedi and wielding the power of the Force, you have to learn to do that selflessly. And that's the real pressure when you get down to it on someone with the ability to use the Force, because ultimately you cannot wield it for yourself. You have to wield it for others. And that's what the Sith don't realize. So that's all within Season 2, if you think about it.
It wasn't that the name of Grievous's ship?
What's that?
Malevolence?
Malevolence, yeah.
It wasn't in the
Thanks,
ship,
Freddie. Thanks for watching.
Four other things about Star Wars.
Hi, I'm Katrina Dennis from MoviePilot.com and the Mos Eisley Comic Fort podcast. I am a huge fan of the Kanan comic that just came out. First issue was absolutely stellar, and this is particularly for Dave and Simon. How does the Star Wars story group expand Rebels in that sense? Like, you guys are expanding to books and comic books and hopefully video games someday. So how do you guys work together with the other branches of the story group?
The comic was easy because Greg wrote it.
Yeah.
The comic was a no-brainer. Greg writes comics, and Greg wasn't working on Season 2 with us. So, the opportunity came up to have a comic book written, and it's like, well, let's have Greg Weisman do it because he's already worked with us. So what happens is he writes the treatment, and then Simon and I see it, and we're able to make notes directly on it. I mean, which I think maybe is rare in the crossover universe from films and television to comics and other medium. But we always get a chance to look at everything that comes by.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. Working in other, franchises, there's not the same kind of integration. So you don't get the. If you are the sort of core group that created one branch, you don't necessarily even get access to the other branches until they come out as a book, and maybe you get a free book. But you certainly are not involved in the process. And this is it's kind of an amazingly small unit for the amount of stuff they generate. That story group that we're talking about is like 4, 5, 6 people maybe deep, and they got huge, biggest movies in the world that they're also focused on. While being focused on a comic book spin-off of their animated show. So there is just, everybody works really hard, everybody loves it, and we are all constantly talking. And there are moments on the feature side where, Dave and me and different writers from different movies are all in the room together, working on, one of their films. And then sometimes we bring some of those guys in when we're doing development of the show. And it really feels like, it's kind of like what I imagine like Facebook or Google or these sort of campuses to be like. It does have this almost university campus vibe to it.
You can imagine, since clones were in that story, I was heavily interested in, just helping Greg with how that would all go. And I think it turned out great. It's one of my favorite things. I think the artwork in it is also fantastic. So that's kind of a comic book home run for me. Yeah, I think so.
Hi guys, Aldo Canepa here, Cougar News and KFI. You guys, obviously we just saw the trailer. What was the reaction from the fans like to you guys? And also, we saw Vader in the trailer too. Will we see an Ahsoka versus Vader battle in there sometime in Season 2? But The main question first: how was the fan reaction to you guys?
We've never seen it, so our reaction was the fan.
Yeah,
It was a fan reaction.
It was the same as y'all. We hadn't seen it yet.
I couldn't believe I was able to stand and sit down again because I couldn't move after I was paralyzed.
Worried about you.
We had to make sure there was a medic
needed a medic.
backstage because we were worried about Vanessa.
No, for real. That was insane.
But just the sensory overload too, from being on the stage and then getting the energy from the audience at the same time, and all the emotions that are going on with all of us because we're fans too. It was intense. It was really, really intense.
I want to, every episode of Rebels, I want to watch it with that sound.
I know.
We were on the stage, I was like rumbling with it. It was amazing. Also, to get to hear people's reaction to Rex was like, yeah. And Hondo, goosebumps. And Hondo, that's
The
awesome.
Hondo love was great.
Yeah.
I think for me, that was the part that is particularly striking. I mean, having been here and created those characters, and then to all this time later have a reaction like that. I mean, when I got here, Rex wasn't really a thing at all. He wasn't a character. Neither was Hondo. Neither was Ahsoka. We had to plant them and help them grow over the years. And I told Ashley in the beginning, Ahsoka, Anakin having a Padawan, look out. You're going to get, the brunt of this. And she hung in there, and I think really won fans over. So it was kind of an amazingly, moving experience for me to have a character like Captain Rex, a clone, cheered at such a volume. And I think that shows you the real powerful thing about Star Wars and the challenge that we all have as well. I grew up with the original trilogy and I love it. The biggest thing I learned from George over the years is create new characters, create new ground, keep it moving forward. I love the past. I'm incredibly nostalgic for it. But the best work we did on Clone Wars was always the new stuff we did that challenged us as writers to make it Star Wars and a part of the universe. And I think that now my hope is that, in another decade, I'll still be this, and, I don't know which of you will still be alive. Whoever it is that's crawling on.
That's not the first time you said that.
Whoever it is that makes it into the next thing, bravo, and whoever doesn't make it, well, I can't tell you. If I said a name, you'd be like, oh, that person survived. So I caught myself there. But that was a great moment.
I'll wash your car every day, dude.
Oh, thanks, Steven.
Hey, guys, thank you very much for everything that you've done for Star Wars. Yeah, let's make a big round of applause. Thank you very much. Rich Wolosky, Skywalking through Neverland. First of all, I shed a tear during the Force Awakens trailer, and I shed a tear during Season 2 trailer back there, but I messed this whole convention. But I want to ask each of it and every one of you, how do you feel when you come to a celebration and you see kids and adults cosplaying as your character? Dave, let's start with you.
I love it. It's the number one thing I look forward to. I designed this stuff, I sketched it on a piece of paper one day, knowing that Ventress will walk in the room and she's up in the unicorn. I drew that outfit on a piece of paper one day, and there it happens. Bo-Katan's Mandalorian helmet I drew on a Southwest napkin, and then that becomes part of Star Wars. It never ever gets old. I was outside the convention and Zeb walked up to me. I mean, Hera walks up to you. It's what it's all about, and the amount of work that everybody does to make those costumes is, I just love it. I super appreciate it.
My favorite one was last year at Comic-Con. There was a cosplay Dave Filoni.
Yes!
I wish I could project from my phone up to the wall, because it was a guy with that hat and a black shirt, and Dave doesn't want to believe it was him, but I think it was him.
You have my wife obsessed with this guy.
Yeah. I tried to track him down. And I saw that guy over there with the hat, and I thought maybe we'd found him again, but that's not
There's now people that have this shirt and a hat. I think you're all crazy. This is something you guys see. I appreciate it. It means we should hang out more, maybe.
I'm working on my Dave Filoni cosplay right now. Here going, the shirt. I'm halfway there. Yeah.
One of the bold things about the show when we started it was, I think, the instinct, the easiest instinct would be if you were creating a new show and it's the first thing from the new Lucasfilm, essentially. You would lean on the legacy characters. You would make an animated show based on the brand names that everybody knows, and we did the opposite. All these guys up here obviously are completely original characters, and that was a bold thing to do, and it was something that wasn't immediately clicked and made sense for all the powers that be. and it was an extra responsibility, obligation to create characters that were as compelling as the greatest characters of all time. I mean, that's who they're competing with. And so to come here and see the kind of energy and affection that people have for these characters that didn't exist 2 years ago in the world, that didn't exist on screen a year plus ago, is pretty incredible. Like Dave said, the amount of time someone stitches together a costume based on a character that literally did not exist out of someone's imagination a year and a half, 2 years ago, is surreal and very gratifying.
Hello, you guys. Over here, Freddie.
All I hear are speakers.
Oh, that's Dave.
Yeah. Full-time podcaster, part-time Filoni cosplay. Yep. Anyway, my question, Dave sent in with Phantom Awakens radio. Now, Dave, not to be confused with those other guys that did that other radio. But anyway, my question for Dave and Simon, can you two particularly speak on the process of how everything changed around? You know, Dave, I know you worked with George for so long, and that was, I think, a shock to everybody. So I'm particularly interested to hear what you have to say. And Simon, on the level of the outline George left behind, all the his notes, everything. How much of those are used? I think I remember hearing you saying something about it depends from movie to movie, that kind of thing. So if you two could just speak on that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, from, I forget what year, but it might have been the second year I was at Lucasfilm, and I would spend a lot of time with George in editorial, and he would be teaching me the way that he cut Star Wars. That has so much to do with the way the films feel, the way the footage is cut together and moved around. And he used to tell me all the time, he's like, I'm teaching this stuff so that when I'm gone, it will still carry on the way I want it to. And I'm like, I'm going to be here longer than you. That's fascinating. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to retire one day. And I'm like, you're going to retire. Well, you can retire from giving me notes today because I have lots to do. But, it was a great master-apprentice relationship. But I heard about this faraway world where he described being retired. I just didn't really believe it until, he sold the entire company. And then I had to believe it. But, I've taken that very seriously. I feel a great deal of responsibility to George as someone that I worked with for a long time to constantly inform Simon and the rest of Story Team. Yes, I understand why you would think you want to do that, but in my experience, I thought that too, but then I would do it this way. And I try to hold the line on a lot of that stuff. In a lot of ways, though, the rest of it, we all realize no one is ever going to replace George. It's just not going to happen. So what I think is amazing about the group of people we have working on Story is that it is a collective group of people that love Star Wars. And actually, if you get to talk to them, they all love different aspects of it. And my feeling from my perspective working here so long is that each person brings their own aspect and love of Star Wars to the story. And together, just maybe we can combine to make something like some kind of Star Wars Voltron, Freddie.
I was about to say Voltron. Lions or robots?
Maybe that way we, are coming close to equaling the genius George had, which I hold, very high esteem, obviously. And I think that's the best way to work. I think that we're aware of the challenge. We take the responsibility seriously. And my workflow is very similar to the way it was before. It's just now I've got, instead of one person, to go to for the commandments, I talk to a group of people, and together we come up with the answer. And then, the nice thing is, when I say I think it would be this, usually Simon, Kiri, we're all on the same page. So we know with the surety this is the way to go. Commandments by committee, yeah, I think so. Yeah, no, go ahead.
So, it was really important to us to share the show with George. I don't know if we said this before. Maybe I don't know.
Like once or twice, yeah.
So when we finished the pilot 2 episodes, we brought it up. We went up to Skywalker and screened it for him. Me, Dave, Carrie Hart, Rain, I think was there too. People from Story Group, And it was, for me, the strangest experience of my life, where, again, the only thing I can compare it to is like the Bible, and you're like sitting next to God. Not even like the guy that wrote the Bible, God. And so, he was enjoying it, and I was just clocking him the whole time. And the lights came up, and he said, it's terrific. It's terrific. And really loved it, and had the same kind of passion for it that we obviously have had for everything he created. What Dave's saying is 100% right. I mean, having worked on all the different movies too in different capacities, it's the same process. It's the same respect, love, adoration for what George created, and trying to sort of speak in his voice. I think very much that's what the different filmmakers who all have their own visions and own voices grew up on his voice, and that is the singular text for all of us across the board that made us want to be filmmakers. And so it's really, we're sort of channeling him as we're working on anything Star Wars related.
That moment was intense. For me, that was like taking a final exam. I had been learning at Star Wars University for years, and here the first thing I've done without him entirely, without sending a story reel where he can make some final note. And it was an awesome experience, and to share it with these guys, I think it really, solidified our group, and we're like, well, okay, we've gotten this right. And so that was a great moment.
The first time I met him, I'll tell you a very quick story that I haven't told too many people, but I went up to meet him before he'd actually sold to Disney, but I think he'd hired Kathy to come run the company, and they wanted to expand, he had ideas for new movies, and so I came up to meet him. I'd never met him before, and I'm very phobic of flying, so I have to medicate when I fly and take anti-anxiety medication, so some more than you need to know, but what it does is it gets me a tiny bit loopy, so I'm like, I need to know I have a certain amount of hours when I get off the plane before I meet George, so that I'm completely clear and focused. So we get up there, and I was supposed to start at we were meeting for lunch, and we get up at 9 in the morning, and he's ready now. And I was like, no, I'm still kind of on my medication. I'm not in a good place to meet George Lucas for the first time in my life. And they're like, no, it's right now, it's happening. And they took me in, and I actually think that the anti-anxiety medication helped me stay calm meeting George Lucas for the first time. Because I think without it, I probably would have had a panic attack.
Well, from a fan's perspective, I mean, as we came onto the show, we were all fans coming into the show raw, and that reverence for what George created is palpable to us in the room. It feels like the first movie, and at least my first movie, which was the first movie in my opinion. But it trickles down. It's still very much alive and well in the room every single time we record.
That's true. But also, Dave very casually mentioned it to us well after the fact. He was like, oh yeah, we showed the pilot to George. Oh, he loved it. And we were like, George has seen the pilot? What are you saying to us right now? It's like, no big deal. Yeah, he thought it was great. Oh my God.
See, to Tia and Simon, George is God, and then to dorks like Dave and I, he's Voltron.
Why can't he be both?
And I'll form the hood.
So you guys, we have time for one last question. Right there.
Hi, Trisha Barr from Fangirl Blog, Star Wars Insider, and Fangirls Going Rogue. And you're working, obviously, with these important characters like Vader and Emperor Curve in Season 2. What do you do? What's your process to safeguard their legacies as you tell more stories about running up to who they are in the original trilogy?
That's a great question. But Vader in particular, I think it's a big challenge because you can't undermine his power. I think already in the trailer you can see that we really haven't done that. There would have been probably one of the interesting things about Vader, there would have been a lot of instinct in animation to, now that we're not encumbered by what the suit limitations were as far as his fighting are. So he could be faster, he could be quicker if we wanted him to be. But we absolutely did not go that way. And if you watch the trailer, you can see that Keith Kellogg and the animation team did a meticulous job at studying his fighting style. So that's very true to the stature and the power that Vader has. He was never acrobatic in particular. He was never that fast. He's just a mountain of fear and hate and power. And that's what we tried to throw at Kanan and Ezra when they do have that encounter with him. So, but again, that's why the group dynamic in story is so important. because it will go through a filter of people, everybody reading this script, and together we made sure that we're not going too far with things, that we're not undermining things that are happening maybe other places that we don't know. We were very careful not to have the Emperor in season 1. There would be no reason why he would be involved with our rebels. So again, the group process is so important to keeping the integrity that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all see ourselves as custodians of the same flame. And whenever it starts to flicker out a little bit, there are a lot of, like you say, safeguards. There's a lot of safeguards along the way that step in and protect it. So it's a team of people that love the same thing, like you do.
Well, you guys, I think that's about it. Thank you so